everyone, I'm Tasha. Thank you so much for coming over and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk a little bit, or a lot actually, about the goddess Brigid. Imbolc is coming up, it's almost February, and I've been thinking a lot about her and how I want to incorporate her into my own rituals, and that kind of made me think, why not share some information and some of my research that I've gathered with all of you guys, in case you were looking to learn a little bit more about her, a little bit more about the Saint Brigid, and we'll also talk a little bit about symbols and ritual ideas and all kinds of things. So sit tight, get something good to drink, and let's talk about the amazing and beautiful goddess Brigid. Look how beautiful she is. So this is our first image to kind of think about and ponder on with the goddess Brigid. So she's a Celtic Irish goddess, and she goes by many names: Brigid, Bride, Briganti, Breed, Saint Brigid. There's all kinds of different ways of saying her name based on what area in the Celtic lands you were in. And she was a triple goddess, so she has fire and water in her. She's incredible. She's beautiful. So she's a triple goddess. She's Brigid the poet, Brigid the smith, and Brigid the healer, or Brigid the physician. So she holds these three different aspects. And if you're familiar with like Celtic mythology, you would know that that's a pretty common theme in their stories. So she's the daughter of Dagda, and in some places I've read that she's also the daughter of the Morrigan, but I've also been told that she's the daughter of a poet, like an unknown poet, and I kind of think it's a little more romantic, the idea of her mother maybe being this unknown poet. But it's totally up to you and how you want to interpret that. She has the qualities of magic, healing, fire, foretelling the future, blacksmithing arts, hearth and home, Imbolc, Candlemas, animal care, holy wells, water, early stirrings of spring. So she has all kinds of different attributes that really fit in, of course, to this time of year. So here's a couple pictures of her family, so you can kind of get an idea of her family tree. This is a very brief and I'm totally unqualified when it comes to mythology, but it's just a little brief overview of her story. So this is her father, the Dagda, and that's where I found this photo. So there he is. I love this interpretation of him. He's totally my type. He kind of actually looks like my husband. But yes, so the Dagda, that's her dad. So a little bit of information about him. I found this other kind of cool old picture. I couldn't find the author or the artist. It looks really old, but I did find it on that website. So the Dagda, he was known as the good god, and he was a father figure, a king, a druid. He was the chief of the Tuatha De Danann. I wrote that out phonetically because I still can't get it out. He was the god of poetry, fertility, masculine energy, agriculture, strength, magic, and wisdom. And he was kind of the Irish all-god or all-father, which, if you're familiar with Norse mythology, with the Norse, kind of common, I found, with Odin. Her mother, questionable again, if it was the Morrigan or just a poet, but qualities of the Morrigan were battle, war, guardian, triple goddess, as well as Brigid, so I do see that connection there. She often appears as a crow, and she's like a goddess of prophecy and fate. I also thought it was interesting that when we think about Imbolc, the two colors that we often associate with the Sabbath and that time of year is red and white. So red for blood and white for innocence and milk and snow. And the Morrigan is often associated with blood and battle and war. So she's the red, and then Brigid, the healer, and candles and milk and baby lambs and goats. that is the white. So I just thought that that was an interesting intermingling, and I'm curious if that's why. So that's her father, and I've got a couple of pictures of her brothers. So this is Kermit, and I found a little story about him. That's the artist as well. So he was killed by Lou because he was a little bit of a ladies' man, and he decided to have a little afternoon delight with Lou's wife, and he was not gonna let that happen. So Lou killed Kermit, and the Dagda, being so kind and fatherly, cried tears of blood for Kermit and onto the stick that became a healing stick that ended up resurrecting his son that he loved so much. So that's one of Brigid's brothers. This is Brigid's other brother, Angus. I don't really know the proper pronunciation of that. He is, in some stories, in Scottish stories, I believe, known as her lover and her mate. And then in others, he's known as her brother. So this is a Victorian era painting of him. And he's pretty cute. He's like a little swan. So he's the god of youth, love, summer, poetic inspiration. So that connection back to Brigid. And he can turn into a swan, which I thought was pretty cool. And here's just another picture of him that I thought was hilarious. So this is by Beatrice Elvery, and from 1914. I found this on Wikipedia. But I love his like weird leopard print loincloth. Like, I don't know. I might turn this into a Valentine. It seems like a perfect Valentine card or something. I don't know. But it's just hilarious to me. It's really funny. But there he is with his loincloth. And then her other brothers are Aed. I don't know, guys, I'm sorry, but this picture, though, I think is actually the Dagda after I did further research into it. But he is the god of the underworld and fire. And then her other brother, Bob Dirk. Again, I know there's a way better way to say that. He was Bob the Red, and that's him there. And he was the successor of Dagda to be the king of the Tooth de Danann, and was known as the Red Crow, which I love the idea of a red crow, and was a battle god. So that's just a little bit about her family to get started. My experience working with the gods, and this is something that I figured out way too late into my own path, which is why I'm sharing it with you now, especially if you're new to your path, is that I found learning about that god's family really helps them open up to you, and you find new ways to approach them and connect with them. For example, if you were wanting to work with Brigid and you came across a swan feather or a white feather, knowing that her brothers associate with swans, you could use that. So it gives you so many more resources and ways to connect. And I think that it's just kind of you learning about their family and them learning about you, and it's just a nice two-way connection that I really wish I figured out a long time ago. So let's talk a little bit about Brigid's triple aspect. So back to Brigid. She was the goddess of healing, and there were many pilgrimage to holy wells and healing waters. At Candlemas, for healing, white candles were crossed over the throat to heal the sick. So this is something locally at the Catholic Church that I grew up at before I became a pagan heathen. This is what they did on February 2nd, was this blessing of the throats, where they had blessed the new candles, which is Candlemas, which we'll talk about. But then they would take those blessed candles and cross them over your throat to bless your throat, and to also bless like what comes out of your mouth, kind of thing. And I looked up blessing of the throat online and found some different dates for that, but here it was always on Candlemas. So I don't know if that's like a East Coast Atlantic Canada thing, or just me having a weird church. I don't know. So anyways, she was the perpetual flame, and therefore the perpetual flame was kept for her. So a sacred fire has burned for her in Kildare, Ireland, and priestesses of Brigid would keep the flame. So they would keep the fire lit to honor her in hopes of her kind of protecting their herds and their flock and their, their food, right? And also for a fruitful harvest. So they would keep that flame going to ask the goddess to continue to bless their land. And then, of course, when Christianity kind of took over the Celtic lands, nuns actually took over tending her flame. So her flame continued to become lit again in the modern times. So when she became a saint, the flame survived until the 16th century, and it was put out, and then it was relit in 1993 by the Brigidine sisters, and it still burns today. And I believe, I could be wrong, but there's also the priestesses of Brigid, and I believe that now, even more modern, they keep the sacred flame as well. So she was the goddess of poetry, so that's her other aspect. So goddess of healing, goddess of poetry, and goddess of the forge. And so the Dagda was a poetic god, and he passed his gifts on to his daughter, or maybe if you subscribe to the myth that she was the daughter of a poet, she could have got those gifts from her mom. And she was invoked to inspire poets, artists, and anyone looking for inspiration. So a personal story, little segue, little side note, a good, very good friend of mine, Morgan, works with the goddess Brigid very devoutly. And he has pretty much, I think, since he started on his path. Anyways, we were going to do a ritual many years ago, and I told him, I assigned him a project to bring something creative to the ritual, and he channeled Brigid and wrote this poem. So I'm going to finish the video with his poem, but it was channeled from her. So I feel like knowing someone who's had such a profound experience with her really kind of inspires me to want to have an experience with her as well, and hopefully you too. So yes, so anyone looking for inspiration. And then she's the goddess of the forge and the hearth. So she's the goddess of blacksmiths and people creating weapons. So she's pretty badass. Like she's a protectress. She's got a cauldron that she carries for melting fire. Or melting metals, sorry. Melting fire, yeah, Tasha. Melting metals. I won't edit that, so you guys know that. She's the goddess of smithcraft, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, housecrafts, warrior goddess who forges spears and arrows. So she's a pretty tough cookie. She kind of is the whole package. I love that image of her. So this is actually a banner that you can buy by an artist called Wendy Andrew. And that's where I found it. And just some symbols associated with Brigid. So this is a really nice image that has lots of symbols. You can see my little notes there. So the St. Brigid's cross, which is right here. And it's usually made of rushes, and it was originally made to keep away evil, fire, and keep hunger away, and to kind of protect your home. The anvil and the hammer, which aren't depicted here, but were depicted on our other one here. So the anvil and the hammer for the blacksmiths and the warriors. Wells and chalices, candles and corn dolls. Animals that she was associated with are lambs, cows, bees, groundhogs, snakes when they're entwined for the symbol of healing. She is pretty much associated with any like baby animal or in especially like livestock. So those type of animals, any milk producing animal, her plants, and these are just a few of very, very many. But snowdrops, crocus, corn, shamrocks, of course, clovers. Shamrocks I find very effective to invoke goddess Brigid energy. Scent, lavender, dessert smells, so like sweet smells like baking, smoke, and cedarwood as the goddess of the forge and fire. Gems for her, brass, agate, copper, and amethyst, and colors are red, white, yellow, and black. Those colors because red, again, the blood of birth, and white, the purity of birth and snow, and then yellow for the comings, the fire and the coming spring, and then black for the soot and dirt of war. I could also say you could throw blue in there with the holy wells. So these are kind of like when you're thinking about creating an altar to Brigid, look into what she's associated with and then what you have. So do you have white candles? Do you have, you may not have an anvil, but do you have a little hammer? Or do you have the crafty ability to make a St. Brigid's cross? There's so many awesome tutorials on YouTube. I haven't really tried to make one with a whole lot of success, but I don't think it's really that hard. I'm just not very crafty. You could have images, so you could print images out and put them in a picture frame or just put them on your altar of her. You could get some amethyst if you have it, or agate, or if you have brass in your house, if you have an old brass lamp or a brass bell, you could put that on your altar. You could use those colors. You could use red, white, altar cloth, or black, or blue. I mean, really, you can associate any color to whatever god you want. So it's really open to interpretation anyways. You could put some shamrocks on there. So there's a lot of ways I find to find ideas just by looking into attributes of the goddess or god. So we can't talk about Brigid without mentioning Saint Brigid. So this is Saint Brigid. Very similar images you will see, and notice that we already talked about our pagan goddess, so just keep that in mind. She's one of Ireland's patron saints. She was born on the Battle of Faughard in 1318 in Ireland and died February 1st, Candlemas, 1523 AD in Kildare, Ireland. And I think I had said earlier about the church doing February 2nd. I lied to you, it would have been February 1st. So, symbols. Shepherd's staff, flames, lamps, candles, cows, ducks, and geese. Very similar to our goddess Brigid. I got these information from this Catholic.org website. She was the saint of Kildare, babies, blacksmiths, boatmen, farm animals, farmers, bastards like me. And if you don't know what a bastard is, it's just someone who was born out of wedlock. Abused children, dairy workers. She's the saint of Florida. Ireland, mariners, midwives, nuns, poets, and travelers. A lot of very common and similar as our goddess. So there's always this debate, was Brigid a real person, or was she really the goddess that they had personified into a saint because she was so beloved? And that's kind of what I believe, but you're, again, open to interpretation. She was born into slavery and performed miracles. She, at one point, wouldn't eat any food that the Druids had given her. So she, of course, was taken into slavery by those evil Druids. I'm kidding. And they were trying to feed her and take care of her, and she wouldn't eat because she felt that they were impure, which, of course, the Catholics felt like was her performing a miracle. So she would only suckle off of a cow. So she would only drink cow's milk, bringing us again back to Brigid. She was known as healing people and generous. She would give things away. She would give away all of her things at her father's home when he took her back. So she was very kind, and she just gave everything to everyone. She founded a monastery at Kildare that was previously a shrine to the goddess Brigid. It was a pagan shrine. And she founded a school of art. So a couple of her miracles that she performed, there's a huge list. This is just a couple. She turned water into beer. Love it. Prayers to her would still the wind or rain, which I thought was interesting. And then, of course, she could kind of apparently tell if someone was pure or not. So that's that's Saint Brigid. And you'll notice those same symbols that Brigid's cross there that she's holding. So Imbolc and Candlemas. So Imbolc, if you're not familiar with it, it's a quarter festival between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So it kind of falls right between. It was a time of year when people were almost there. They're almost getting out of winter, and soon they're going to be able to start planting, and animals are going to be born. Milk's going to be available again, and they're going to be able to eat. So it's just kind of a time of kind of being excited And it falls between February 1st and February 2nd, lining up again with St. Brigid. It's a Gaelic festival, and it marks the beginning of spring. It's a very nice time. So things to do is you can make candles, you can bless candles, you can do candle magic, you can clean your house. That's something that I've been doing, is starting to go through and really deep clean my house, start the spring cleaning. You can bless your house with water, especially to really bring in that holy well aspect of her. Bless seeds and put them outside for birds. So some bird seeds, you could build something, you could buy or bless or make an athame. You could look for a wand. So wands in the tarot are associated with fire, and therefore we can associate them with Brigid. So you could take a little walk and see if you can find a fallen branch or something that stands out to you to bless for Imbolc or your new wand. You could light a fire, you could make a bed for brides. So that's something that I do, is I, in my early years, I would just use a bowl. I have a basket now, and I put like a white towel in it. And then I have a little corn dolly that I made 1,000 years ago. It was actually on my Wheel of the Year altar video. And I will put that in there and then light 2 white candles on each side. And it's to invite Brigid into your home, to bless her blessings upon your hearth. And I leave her in the kitchen. I put the candles in the sink and just let them burn out and let her stay overnight. So that's just something you can do that's really easy and really a nice way to honor her. Candlemas is February 2nd, and it was when candles were brought into the church to be blessed, also for a ritual purification of Mary, and associated with Brigid. So sometimes Brigid was known as Ireland's Mary, so the Celts' Mary, and so there's kind of association of her with Candlemas as well. And then healing of the throats, and this is just a cool image of Brigid from way back in the day, 2nd century, I think that says. Second century BCE, so super old. She's looking really badass here. I really think this type of goddess that could really kick your ass if she wanted to. And here's another image of St. Brigid that I thought was really pretty, and a little bit of that similar iconography. And this is the poem that my friend Morgan wrote, channeled by Brigid. So I'll finish the video with that. So you can meditate on her picture. And it goes like this. It doesn't have a name. A single small snowflake, a symbol of cold. The close of the circle, an ending of the old. But a sign of beginning, the snowflake is too. From winter comes spring, the circle starts new. The maiden has woken, the sun god comes forth. The bitter cold winds flee back to the north. The daytime grows longer, the ice starts to melt. The oak king victorious, the dark king has knelt. Spring is just blooming, and not yet arrived. Demeter has yet to make the ground come alive. Father Winter still struggles, refusing to go, intent on encasing the whole world in snow. But the sun god is coming, and winter's last hold. The trees in the woods are shaking off cold. The wheel keeps turning, as always it goes, the cycle ongoing, the seed to the rose. Welcome the sunshine, the warmth on your face. Its energy fills you, your heart starts to race. But still mind the chill, as it shall linger on, and though it may leave, it shan't be gone long. So that was a poem by my friend Morgan. Probably one of my favorite poems to read around Imbolc, and I think it just totally expresses the year, and the fact that he got it through channeling her just makes it all the more special. So thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me this afternoon. Happy Imbolc to you. We're almost there, and bless Brigid, and Brigid's blessings upon you. So let me know if you have any questions or if I can help you in any way, and I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.